Greetings, gunslingers. I'm Chaplain Andrew McIntosh, your 67th Cyberspace Wing Chaplain. I'm joined this morning by a very special guest, Chaplain Colonel Daniel Karanja, our 16th Air Force Senior Chaplain. And we're here to discuss some of the current issues facing our nation today. Chaplain Karanja?
Good morning. Thank you, Chaplain McIntosh. This morning I'd like to share with you my own personal reflections on what I have learned during these challenging times. I have learned that the gift of listening, being able to be present with my fellow airmen, is probably the most meaningful and important thing I can do. Being able to be present and giving undivided attention is a gift that we can all afford to give and share with one another. As airmen, we all have great stories, stories of pain, stories of joy and victory, and the opportunity to be able to share it with somebody who is not passing judgment, who is just being able to do some deep listening is probably what is needed in this moment and in this time. Being able to hear out what hurts me the most, being able to hear me out of what gives me the most joy as a fellow airman is a gift that we can all afford to give. The challenges that we are faced with, whether it's biases, unconscious biases or conscious biases, prejudices, including racism, can be addressed first by hearing each other. My humble request to you is that you will take the time to listen out and to hear your fellow airman today. Because when you do that, you humanize who he is. You affirm his likeness with yourself. In other words, while we may have come from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, as human beings, we have a shared humanity. And that is what we all have to recognize, that our futures are tied together. We are interdependent. The futures of our children and our grandchildren are all interlinked. And so the decisions that we make today of being able to have that meaningful and difficult conversation about race, about racism, about the challenges that we have faced, will help them and lay the foundation of the same deep and respectful listening that they will be able to have. So take the time, take a deep breath, listen to yourself, take some time to be silent and hear yourself out first so that you can be able to hear others. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain Karanja. Today we hear a lot of people's perspectives on what's going on in our nation. Many people talk about it from the position of social justice. Others talk about it from the position of racial equality. And still yet others talk about it in terms of disadvantaged economic systems and things like that. But I want to look at it today from the lens of faith. Faith is the way in which I interpret the world around me from my own Christian perspective. I believe, first of all, that all human beings are created in the image of God. Because of that, all human beings are worth dignity and respect and should be treated accordingly. I have here in my hand a $1 bill. Now this is a usual $1 bill, nothing extraordinary about it. But if I were to take this and all of a sudden crumble it up, would it be worth any less than $1? If I were to take that same bill and put it on the ground and rub my foot on it or put it in dirt, would it be worth any less than $1? No, it is still worth $1. There is an irreducible value to this bill. Many people in culture and society have been mistreated. They have been abused. They have been, trotted underfoot, so to speak. But they are still created in the image of God. There's an irreducible value to them, and they deserve the dignity and respect that all people deserve. A second perspective is this: a desire to serve one another. I like how Jesus put it when he said, "Even as you do unto the least of these my brothers, you do unto me." I remember when I was in seminary, one of my favorite quotes was, "The pastor too big to serve the small church is too small to serve the big church." And what that said to me personally was, we need to be on guard against arrogance, and instead have a spirit of humility that says, no job is beneath me. That we're willing to help our fellow man any way we possibly can. Even if it's as simple as cleaning up after them, we should be willing to do that. We like to rack and stack people by socioeconomic class. We heard a few years ago about all the frustration about the top 1%. We talk about the middle class and how it's now shrinking and how people are, making less money or having a lower standard of living. But I believe that we should not judge a person's greatness by the wealth they've accumulated, but rather by how generous they are with that wealth. We need to be willing to give to others. And then lastly, I think of the Bible story of the Good Samaritan, and I'm reminded of the need for compassion for one another. In this story, you have a Jewish man who is beat up and robbed and left for dead on the side of the road. And the gospel writer Luke talks about this Samaritan who comes by. Now, I need to pause for a second because you need to understand that the Samaritans were deeply hated by the Jews, and the Samaritans themselves disliked the Jews strongly as well. But this Samaritan, of all people, had compassion upon this Jewish person who was passed up by a priest and a Levite and others who were too busy to step aside and help him. This Levite not only cleaned his wounds and dressed them, but took him to an inn and paid the innkeeper, and then said, and when I return from my journey, whatever is still owed on behalf of this man, I will come and pay. And then Jesus closed the story by simply saying this, now go and do likewise. I believe that is a good word for us. We know right from wrong. We know how we should treat our fellow human beings. We know how to be a compassionate, kind listener for them. So it's now our turn to go and do likewise. Thank you.